When you think of war, what pops into your head? Probably soldiers, tanks, fighter jets, right? Well, it turns out the front lines are changing in ways you might not expect. The weapons, they're not just metal and explosives anymore. In fact, today, some of the most powerful weapons are actually lines of code, huge databases, and, get this, the CEOs of the world's biggest tech companies. Okay, let's dive into what this new battlefield really looks like.
So, our first stop is Iran. Something big is about to go down, a new kind of heist. But I want you to forget everything you think you know about bank robberies. No guns, no getaway cars. This is something way more quiet and honestly, way more terrifying.
Let me just ask you this. Imagine you wake up tomorrow morning, you grab your coffee, check your banking app, and the balance is zero. Everything, every single cent you've saved, just gone. It's a nightmare scenario, isn't it? Well, for millions of people in Iran, this wasn't just some bad dream. A really sophisticated cyber attack hit a major state-run bank, and for a staggering 85% of its customers, their data was just wiped. Poof! Their life savings, at least on paper, had completely vanished into thin air. So you're probably wondering, how does an entire bank's system just collapse like that? Well, this attack was incredibly patient and methodical. The hackers didn't just smash their way in. No, they slipped in quietly, getting past some early warnings that were apparently just dismissed as minor glitches. And then they just lurked inside the network for 3 whole weeks, mapping everything out. Once they were ready, they unleashed automated scripts that just started deleting everything. The whole system was completely down in just 2 hours. The Iranian government's response was, as you can imagine, fast and furious. And this quote from their central bank spokesperson is so important. Listen to the language they used. They didn't call the attackers robbers or thieves. They called them cyber terrorists. And that one word changes everything. It elevates this from a simple crime to an act of war, a direct attack on the country's economic stability. And that brings us to a really key idea here. This new kind of conflict isn't just about blowing things up anymore. It's about controlling information. The battlefield has shifted from physical bank vaults to the digital databases that pretty much run our entire society, including, as we'll see, our legal systems. Okay, check this out. Let's look at a corporate battle between 2 legal tech companies, LawsNote and LawBank. This was not a small data breach. We are talking about a massive, systematic digital heist. LawBank copied over 330,000 individual records. We're talking legal histories, case files, attachments, the whole shebang. They basically stole an entire digital library that took years to build. Also, they could launch their own competitor. And here is where the story gets just unbelievable. The company that stole all the data had a clause in its own terms of service that explicitly forbids anyone from using web crawlers to take information from their service. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. They literally broke the exact same rule they had in place to protect themselves. The judge in the case, thankfully, did not mince words. The ruling just cut right through all the technical mumbo-jumbo and got straight to the point. To make money, rely on yourself. Do not crawl data from your competitors. The court saw this for what it was, not some complicated tech squabble, but a fundamental breach of ethics. A clear warning that even in the digital age, basic integrity still matters. Okay, so we've seen how code can be a weapon and how data is now a strategic resource worth fighting for. But who are the soldiers on this new front line? Well, the answer might surprise you. It seems some of Silicon Valley's top executives are now putting on a brand new kind of uniform. I want you to meet Detachment 201. It's a new unit in the U.S. Army. Now, just look at this roster. You've got the Chief Technology Officer of Palantir, the Chief Product Officer of OpenAI, the CTO of Meta. These aren't your typical West Point graduates. These are the literal architects of our digital world. And now they're serving as colonels in the Army Reserve. It's wild. So why on earth is the U.S. Army recruiting tech executives? Well, it's because the entire definition of a military is shifting under our feet. They're moving away from a traditional army that relies on huge numbers of soldiers and conventional weapons, and towards what they're calling an intelligent army. It's all about using AI and data to be smaller, faster, more precise, and at the end of the day, more lethal. So what exactly are these tech execs bringing to the table? Well, turns out, a lot. They're helping the Army speed up decision-making, using AI to sift through intelligence in minutes instead of hours or days. They're using data to make strikes more accurate, and they're bringing that classic Silicon Valley mindset, move fast and break things, to try and solve some of the military's most complex problems, not to mention beefing up cyber defense. But, of course, this whole mashup isn't without some really serious risks. I mean, think about it. When you start blurring the lines between a company like Meta and the Department of Defense, you open up a huge can of worms when it comes to security and privacy. What happens when a civilian company is handling military secrets? And then you have the massive ethical questions about using AI to make life or death decisions on the battlefield. This is a very complex and, frankly, controversial new world. So let's just take a step back. We've talked about a bank heist in Iran, a corporate data war, and tech CEOs joining the army. And while they might seem like totally separate stories, they're not. They are all pieces of the same puzzle, this massive global shift. Welcome to the keyboard battlefield. So let's break down how this all fits together. The arsenal for this new frontline really has three key parts. First, you have the weapon. That's the destructive code, like the stuff that wiped out the Iranian bank. Second, you have the resource. That's the strategic data, the digital gold that companies and countries are now fighting over. And third, you have the soldier. That's the tech expert, the human brain that knows how to wield these powerful new tools. And all of this brings us to one final, really crucial question. When a battlefield is digital, when your bank account can be erased from halfway across the planet, and when the people who built our social networks are advising generals, where does the front line even begin anymore? Where does it end? The simple and maybe scary answer is, it's everywhere.